I want to turn to a different two passages. One is a song that Moses taught or he sang to the people of Israel. It tells a story. It's from Deuteronomy 32. I will proclaim the name of the Lord. Oh, praise the greatness of our God. He is the rock. His works are perfect and all his ways are just. A faithful God who does no wrong. Upright and just is he. But then it continues with a complaint. Moses is actually singing a story. It's a prophetic story because it's going to be demonstrated in the history of Israel. That although God is the rock and he's faithful, as all his ways are just and perfect, it then continues, however, they acted corruptly towards me. They're a warped and crooked generation. Is this the way, he says to Israel, that you repay the Lord? O foolish and unwise people. Is he not your father, your creator, who made you and formed you? Remember the days of old and consider the generations long past. In the desert land, he found you. He shielded you and cared for you. He guarded you as the apple of his eye. He nourished you with honey from the rock, him being the rock, with oil from the flinty crag. But then he goes on and says, but you grew prosperous and filled with food, became heavy and sleek, and abandoned the God who made you and rejected the rock, your savior, making him jealous. Turning to the influences and the securities of the other nations round about. And he says this, you deserted the rock who fathered you, and forgot the God who gave you birth. And so it goes on in the song, so the Lord gave you over to what you'd put your trust in and to the securities that you had sought. And it talks, in fact, about calamities being heaped upon his people, and the sorrows and the famine and pestilence and deadly plague and animals and snakes and wild beasts and so on, and then the onslaught of their neighboring enemies. And then he speaks of these enemies and says, they are a nation without sense. There's no discernment in them. I dreaded their taunts that they would think that because they had managed to win a victory over my people, this is a paraphrase, that they would think that it was they themselves who had done that and not the Lord who had allowed them to. Because God being their rock, unless the rock had allowed it to happen, then it could never have happened. And it says, because their rock, he's talking of the nations round about, their rock is not like our rock, as even our enemies concede. Where are their gods and the rock that these others take refuge in? See, I myself am he. There is no God beside me. I put to death, I bring to life. I wounded, but I will heal. No one can deliver out of my hand. I will look to see. I will look to see what is their rock. It's a marvelous passage in that speaks to us. Their rock is not like our rock, as even our enemies concede. As Christian people, there are the securities that others in the world put their hope in, but there is no other security like the security that we find in God, who is the source of all wisdom, who's the source of life, the one who brings us to birth as his children, who, as it says in that chapter, who has fathered us. The next passage I'd like to quote from is Isaiah 26. And it, as you come to the end of the chapter, you have a verse or a couple of verses. Go, my people, enter your rooms and shut the doors behind you. Hide yourselves for a little while until the rage has passed by. If you ever wanted a verse for lockdown, that's it. Go, my people, enter your rooms and shut the doors behind you. Hide yourselves for a little while until the wrath, until the rage or the fury has passed by. Someone gave me that verse way back in March, just as the government announced the lockdown. But that passage comes at the end of Isaiah 26. Isaiah 26 begins with, we have a strong city. God makes salvation its walls and its ramparts. Open the gates that the righteous may enter, the ones that keep faith. You will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is fixed upon you, because his trust is in you. Trust in the Lord forever, for the Lord is the rock eternal. So when you take those bits together, when it comes to the end, go, my people, enter your rooms. These are the rooms in a fortress. They're the rooms in a strong tower that have been prepared for them, that belong to them. And so although there's a very practical wisdom that is given in Isaiah 26, and one that's being lived out in our time, where we are under lockdown, where we are literally going to our own homes and keeping off the streets. Yes, okay, we're allowed out for a wee while, but we're encouraged to hide ourselves away. But if we understand it metaphorically, we're hiding ourselves away, that passage is telling us, to hide ourselves away in God. Because he is the rock, he is our strong tower. In John 14, Jesus said that in my Father's house are many mansions. Some translations would say, in my Father's house are many rooms, and I'm going to prepare a place for you. The whole thing that Christ is doing is to prepare a place in the household of God where we can dwell. That he's preparing a place in God for you and me. And if you link this up with the metaphors about the rock and the strong tower and the fortress, it's about he's preparing a secure place for us in God. The encouragement is to find that secure place in God. And this is, I suppose, the question that I'd like to ask us. Where are our securities? Are we using this time to find the real place of security that we have? A place in God? Are we making use of the time? Where does our hope truly lie? There is a place of security. There's a rock in God. We can absolutely trust him. And all that we read and looked at this morning is an encouragement to seek out that place, to enter that place, to find rest in that place. I'd like to end with another song, and I don't know, Willie, whether we've had any success. We have we? I can see a thumbs up. Okay, this is another hymn, and um, it's a hymn that is. Let me see if I can just bring this up just now. It's a hymn that's taken from the Reformation. Sorry, I'm just waiting a minute. It was written coming up to 500 years ago by Martin Luther, and I suppose is regarded by many as one of the greatest hymns of the Reformation. A mighty fortress is our God. And this particular thing that we're going to listen to is a modern or more modern way of putting it. You know, the old hymn uses language that we tend not to use so much nowadays, but hopefully this will mean something for you.